I help well of you our that day of WPI on every week. And we will be doing more than that.
So welcome everyone. Thank you, Juliana, for that wonderful introduction. Thank you everyone for coming tonight. If you didn't know, President Leshin is going to speak with us in her busy schedule, and we're very, very grateful to hear from her. Some few things I want to mention before she begins is that she is the 16th president and first woman to lead WPI, which is one of America's first technological universities. WPI has been recognized by the Wall Street Journal and Times Higher Education under President Leshin's time as a leader. She is the recipient of NASA's Outstanding Leadership Medal, NASA's Distinguished Public Service Medal, the Meteoritical Society Near Prize, and her research focused on geochemistry and space science. She is also the member of the Federal STEM Advisory Panel. So welcome, President Leshin.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It's wonderful to see you all. I'm thrilled to be with you, and even more thrilled that you're having this meeting in, I guess we're sort of one day after Women's History Month, but that's okay because I personally think we should be celebrating women every month all year round. So good on us for continuing that celebration. So maybe just spend a few minutes talking about the history of women at WPI, which is such an interesting history. And I was just online looking to see if some of the cool materials they have in the archives are online, and they're mostly not. But I don't know if any of you have been in the archives and seen any of the materials, but over time they've had displays on women in the history of WPI, and it's always so fascinating. And you know, WPI was founded in the 1860s, so in the same half decade as MIT. So MIT and WPI were both founded right around the same time. MIT a little bit before us, and then you know, we were founded about 25-30 years after RPI. So RPI is actually the oldest technological university in the US. But we were pretty much right there right after, and part of the Industrial Revolution, where, you know, the mechanization of production was able to really advance industry, and WPI was really founded on the concept of theory and practice. And we used to have companies in with us, right, in Washburn shops with the students, and the students would go to classes part of the day and work in the shops part of the day. And it's that whole theory and practice thing is really all the way back in our history. But women were part of our early history too. We had female instructors almost from the get-go. There were women on the faculty at WPI. They weren't called professors quite so much. They were really instructors. But one of the coolest things I've ever seen in our archives was a letter from one. She wasn't the first female instructor. I think she was the second. And she was like the sister of one of the founders or something. And she taught math, I think. I have all of those details wrong, as I said, like my brain, and I haven't seen it in a few years, but she was here. And there's this whole letter that she wrote to the president about how the women weren't paid as much as the men. And this was a travesty, and they had to fix it. So, you know, all the way back in like, 1870 something, the women were fighting for equality here at WPI, which is pretty cool. And we have this letter actually that she wrote. And so, you know, women on the faculty go way back. Women in the student body, it was much more recent that women students came. And I hope most all of you know about Jane and Leslie. So Lee, she goes by now, but Jane Rossetti and Leslie Small were the first two women undergraduates. And actually next May will be 50 years since the first woman crossed the stage, graduating with a bachelor's degree from WPI. So that's pretty exciting. So a couple of years ago, and some of you might've even been there at homecoming, we, in the fall of 2018, which was 50 years since Leslie and Jane started at WPI, we had them back, and Actually, Leslie's come to several, she came to my inauguration as the first woman president, and I've gotten to know her pretty well. Jane, unfortunately, did not finish at WPI. She transferred out. But you can imagine what it must, I mean, I don't know if any of us can imagine what it must have been like for them. Only 2 women. And so one of them didn't make it at WPI. They both have gone on to, be lovely people. And Jane was so thrilled to come back, and that we treat her just like an alum, like she's earned that. But the interesting thing about Leslie and Jane is that they actually were not the first women to attend WPI. So there's one who, at least one, and there could be others, but there's one that I know about who came before. So when I first came to WPI, I got this handwritten letter from this woman in California. And I remember sitting, I was at an event in Alden pretty early on, like in the first week. And I'm like reading this letter from this woman, and I handed it to one of the VPs, like, is this for real? And she's telling me about how she came to school here in the 50s. And I was like, what? I thought women didn't come here till the late 60s. And so it turns out that she came as a grad student. Her name was Audrey Carlin. So we, even back in the 50s, had master's programs with companies where they could send their employees to, upskill, like we all talk about now, right? Lifelong learning and all of that. Well, even way back then, she and her husband were both working at this company, and they both came and went and did master's degrees here. I think it was in physics, but it might've been electrical engineering. And she graduated in 1957 with a master's degree from WPI. Here's the thing. She was 8 months pregnant in May of 1957 when she actually graduated. And back then, a really, really pregnant woman would not go to a graduation and walk across the stage. So she never had the chance to actually get her diploma and to go through commencement. So in 2017, on the 60th anniversary of her graduation, we gave her an honorary degree and an honorary doctorate, and we had her come back, and she got to walk across the stage and everything. And it was truly one of the highlights of my time. She was a kick. There's a great, if you haven't seen it, I'll try and find the video clip and send it to you all. The local news covered it. And, she's hilarious. She was like, I wasn't trying to break barriers. I was just trying to get a master's degree. So, but just incredibly inspiring. And still, she lives out west. She lives in California now, and her husband passed many years ago. But she was a real trailblazer, and really probably didn't even realize how much. So it's pretty cool to get to, frankly, stand on the shoulders of so many of those giants. And you can look back at our first women faculty who got tenure. And frankly, today there are still in many of our departments not nearly enough women on our faculty, right? And so, just to mix in for a second a little bit from my own history, and then we'll come back to sort of more modern day WPI. So I grew up in Arizona, but was born in Boston, actually. My dad did his residency at the Brigham, and so I was born here. And then as they were basically fleeing cold weather to go out west, we ended up for 5 years in Dallas, Texas, and then in Arizona. And when we lived in Texas, my mom, I was a little girl, I was 6 maybe. And I remember my mom taking me with her to these meetings of all these women who would stand on their chairs and be rowdy and make a lot of noise. And we'd go to marches, and I didn't really know what was going on. But it turns out that my mom was fighting for the Equal Rights Amendment in the early 70s. And she had joined the National Organization for Women and was an organizer, and was really out there pushing women's rights right at that, moment when it was all sort of going down. And at the time, of course, I didn't really understand what was happening, but now I know that, she was trying to kick down doors so that I could walk through them. And so every time I think about the privilege of being in this position, I think about all of those women. Those women played roles, the women in our lives, the women who came before us in our institutions, and each one of us is now breaking a barrier in some way, right? So I think part of our job as leaders and path breakers is to keep breaking down those barriers and to not just light the way forward for others, but actually to kind of pull others along with us and keep that train moving forward. Here at WPI, since I've been here, it's almost 7 years now, which is shocking. But we've worked really hard to increase the number of women students at WPI, and many of you, I'm so proud of all you've done. I think this year is the year that the class of significantly more women, the first class, is graduating. I'm sad to say I've lost lock on which year it is. COVID is so terrible. It's got my brain all scrambled in terms of time. I don't know about the rest of you, but who knows what year it is. So, we have had pretty consistently, 32, 33, 34% women in our graduating class. And I think that number is going to be well north of 40% this year. And I couldn't be more excited about that. And if some of you are in that class, way to go. Congratulations on almost getting across the finish line. And for those who come up later, your classes have more women in them as well. And it's one of my proudest achievements, honestly, as president, that we've been able to continue to bring more great minds to STEM, because STEM needs us. STEM needs to change, and we're the ones who are going to change it. So that's exciting. The other piece of this I would talk about from a WPI perspective is the faculty. And the story here is that literally on my first day as president, which was like June 2nd, 2014, I came Monday morning, drove. I don't know why I drove, because I could just walk across the street, but I guess I had boxes or something. So I drove in and I pulled into my little parking place, and it said, reserved for the president. And I was like, dang, this is real. This is getting real now. And I walked into my office, and there on my chair, literally sitting on my chair, was this file folder. And I was like, oh, what's this? On first day, literally first day, picked it up. It was the results of like a faculty climate survey. How we survey you about what it's like to be a student here and stuff. Well, we do that with our faculty too. Like every 3 years, we sort of say, how's it going? And this is a survey that is actually a national survey, and we do it and we learn from it. And there's a lot of places that we actually really shine. Like our faculty are really happy about certain things, and they really like certain things. And in one area, we had an issue, and it was 0% of our women faculty were satisfied with our promotion process from associate professor to full professor. 0%. So not like, oh, it's a little low, like 0. So I said, well, nobody told me about this during the job interview. So we seem to have a problem here. And so we immediately put a group together to dig into that a little more, right? The data obviously tells you that there's a red flag there, something's wrong, but it doesn't tell you what exactly is wrong and how to fix it. So, so we dug into it. We spent quite a lot of time, a couple of different groups, and it's faculty work, so it takes a while. We're kind of slow here in higher ed, but they in the end came up with a really thoughtful redesign of our entire promotion process and of our criteria. And I'm really proud to say the last 3 years since this new criteria has been in place. And by the way, I put in criteria that just much more broadly defined the scholarly endeavors of faculty, that is their research, their scholarship, to be much more aligned with our values as an institution about working out in the world, about helping real people, about applied learning, applied research. Half of the promoted classes in the last 3 years have been women. So lots of fabulous women faculty on this campus that who probably for years had been stuck at associate professor are now full professors. Like Professor Demetri in the mechanical engineering department is a great example of someone who it was ridiculous that she hadn't been promoted, and now she has been. And again, not to point her out, but like there's just a ton of fabulous, and it's not only women who are succeeding more. We're seeing far more men come forward for promotion now too. And it's interesting. I met with the committee the first year when they were considering the cases and the new approach. And they said, and one of the it can only be full professors who are on the committee. And some of them are a little old and crotchety. And one of the old and crotchety ones said, I have to say that I thought we were lowering the bar, but what I see is that we're broadening the bar. And that's a really great, and what a great statement, right? And now everybody's totally enthusiastic about it. Plus we get a ton of external accolades for it, that we're thinking differently, we're thinking inclusively, and that's the way to do it. What I will say for the women students, and then I'll wrap up, is we don't have to do anything to the bar. You all jump so far over the bar, it's not even funny. So I sincerely hope that none of you have had to put up with people saying you got in here because you're a woman or you're getting treated more easily. Here's the dirty little secret. You're more qualified than the men at this institution from pretty much every measure we have. You graduate at significantly higher rates than they do. You all are crushing it here. The hoops you've all had to jump through just to get yourself to the point where you'd say, I want to go to freaking WPI. Yeah, I want to go to WPI. I want to be part of that. You are well more prepared than, am I going to get in trouble for saying this? Don't tweet this, okay? Nobody Instagram me on this, but you all are crushing it. And so all we've done is make it more inviting and open the door a little wider and light the way a little brighter. And so you all have raced through that door and done so in a way that just inspires me every single day. So you're amazing leaders. And so as I close out, what I would say is, in terms of advice, I only have two pieces of advice that I'd like to really give. So one is about building on your strengths. I have to give myself this advice all the time. Yes, we're being in education right now, and part of that is like fixing weaknesses, learning new things, whatever. But the truth is that you will be happiest and most successful in life if you can focus on trying to figure out what your strengths really are, what drives you, and what gives you passion, and how you can make your strongest impact, and focus on that, as opposed to being focused on, gosh, I've got to make up all of these weaknesses, or I've got to make up all these deficits. So find your strengths and spend lots of time advancing them rather than trying to fix all your weaknesses. So you got to get sometimes to that sort of basic level. Okay, I get that. But if you can spend much more time thinking about your strengths than your weaknesses, you're going to be well off. And then the last one is, so I had the pleasure of being a good friend of Sally Ride, who was America's first woman in space. She was an absolutely amazing woman, died a few years ago of pancreatic cancer, and it just kills me every day. I miss her so much. But what she used to say was, break all the rules, but stay on the team. And I think that is such a powerful piece of advice. As women, we have to push. Sometimes we've got to do things differently. But if you push so hard that you find yourself outside the room, then you can't make that change that you want to make, right? And Sally was a master at this, at pushing, but not so hard that you end up on the outside looking in. And that sometimes feeling like we have to walk that line is frustrating. But if you ask me, how do you make change? That's how you do it. You break all the rules, but you stay on the team. So I'm thrilled to be with you all, and wish you a great event, and wish I could stay, but I think I'm not supposed to stay, am I? Or I'm happy to do whatever you all need. So thank you for having me.
You're welcome to stay, of course, too. And thank you so much for speaking.
Absolutely. I probably will run then, since I have other meetings, but have great fun, and I'm so proud of everything that you're all doing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, following up with that, we're going to start with our then and now facts. So the first fact we have is that women presidents were more likely to lead public institutions than private institutions in 2016. 32% of women presidents have altered their career progression to care for a dependent, spouse or partner or parent. 8% of women presidents lead doctorate granting institutions. 78% of women presidents are serving their first presidency, and 3 out of every 10 college presidents are female.
Okay, so now we have a poll everywhere. You guys can just fill out this, kind of like type in this link and you'll be able to kind of fill out the questions. And then we can discuss once everyone is done. And let me know if there's any issues with it too. If everyone could do like a little Zoom reaction once they're done, that'd be really helpful. I'll just wait like 30 more seconds for everyone to finish up. Okay, I'm going to share the results now. Let's see. Sorry, just 1 minute. Okay, there we go. I think it logged me out for some reason. Okay, so for the first question, do you feel like you have equal opportunities to men? So we have 32% saying yes and 68% saying no. So there's obviously really big difference there. And also, if anyone has any things they like just want to say, and you can just type in the chat or like feel free to like unmute or anything like that too. Okay. Have you faced difficulties as a woman in STEM? Yes, 96%, no, 4%. I think that's pretty crazy to see, and I know for myself, I've definitely faced difficulties, and I think almost everyone has in some way or another. It's kind of interesting to see that though. So were you encouraged to go into a STEM field? Most by women, men, both, or neither. So it seems like for this is actually pretty even in that 44% said it was both women and men. And then 40% was women, 8% was just men, and then 8% was neither. I'd be kind of interested to see like anyone who has anything to say about that too. Yeah. Have you been in STEM classes in high school or at WPI that have been 80% or more male? Yes, 88%, and then no, 12%. I know for myself, I've definitely in high school, I did a lot of computer science classes where it was usually like entirely male, and it was either just me or me and like one other girl. So I think that's pretty common thing that happens, especially in STEM. How many times have you experienced sexism or discrimination? 16% was 0 times, 32% 3 times, and 3 or more times was 52%. Yeah, it's honestly kind of sad to see that, but I think it means that we have more work to do for sure. Have you ever had a family member discourage you from being in a STEM field? Yes was 24%, and then no was 76%. I'm glad to see the majority was that no one was really discouraged, but it's definitely hard if you were. I think that's it. So does anyone have any thoughts or like comments on the results of that survey that they want to share? Feel comfortable sharing? Or like any experiences you might have had like that you want to share from like any classes or like anything like that? If no one does, that's okay too.
Well, okay, somebody said I was gonna say.
Oh. Yeah, Sabrina.
Yeah, this is kind of just like a random thing that I thought of, but one thing was how this doesn't really have to do with STEM in particular, but just about like the usual trend among women. And one thing was, so you know how the SAT used to be like you get penalized for wrong answers? Like it's not just you get 0 points for the question, you like get points off. And they actually found that that was leading to gender disparity in the scores, not because of like a difference in intelligence, but because on the average, most girls would rather like not take their chances and like be safe, and guys would just be like, well, I kind of feel like I know this, and then just like go for it. So another example of this kind of, it's obviously not like for everybody, but like we tend towards this. Another thing is how a lot of girls will, let's say you're in like a coding class, like especially in early times, like in high school or middle school, they'd rather have like a blank piece of paper or a blank, IDE than have something and the teacher be like, oh, that's not good, or that's funky or something. So I feel like both of these instances to me just really encourage me to like just try. Also like another example, sorry, I keep thinking of things, but another example is how a lot of us will be like, oh, I don't fulfill 100% of these job qualifications, so I'm not going to apply. But actually, the reality is you just need like 50% to apply and then 80% to be a really strong candidate. So I guess the whole point of this whole rant is that just go for it, just try it, and like, it's probably going to end up good. So yeah, hang in there, you guys.
Yeah, I really like that. I think it makes a lot of sense. I feel like sometimes it's easy to like feel like you're not qualified enough, or like you need to be like have everything perfect and have everything like the way it's supposed to be, when really you don't. And I think that's really good. Anyone else have anything?
I'll say something.
Okay.
I've had people tell me before, so I'm like kind of in some coding classes. It's kind of part of my major. And I've had like a lot of people tell me, well, like, you're not one of those nerdy boys who goes home and codes like for fun and stuff. So like, you're probably not going to be as good as them. And I'm like, okay, but I still want to learn and like try and be as good. And like, I feel like I get that response a lot. Like, oh, boys are just more into coding, or like boys do it for fun or do it all the time. So they're just going to be better at it. And I'm like, okay, well then we need to get more girls into coding at like a younger age and stuff. And I think a lot of people are trying to do that now, but I'm like, I know in my high school, there was no coding classes really, except for like an AP coding class. But if you were like never introduced to it, you wouldn't have taken that. And that was like all guys and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's definitely like a common assumption that like if you're in computer science and you're a woman, like you're not going to be as good because you don't spend your time doing coding all the time. And it's really not the case, and it shouldn't be that assumption that you're automatically just not going to be as good. And I think Margaret wrote in the chat, that's another common issue, being held to a higher standard in a class and not feeling like you're able to make mistakes because you are the only woman there. Yeah, I agree with that too. I definitely think that like it's like sometimes it's easy to feel like you're supposed to be at a certain standard, and like you have to perform better than some of the like male students just because you're supposed to kind of have higher qualifications, be able like almost like prove yourself all the time. So you shouldn't feel that way though. Yeah, and Julia said some people make it seem like if you don't know everything, you're not going to ever learn. Yeah, and that's definitely not true. Jade.
Something that has happened to me, and I know the job search right now last year and this year was really hard, and we're supposed to like support one another, but something I faced is that like when I get an interview or like I got an internship, some of the guys around me, even they are also in the STEM field, would say like, oh, you got that only because you're a girl, like pretty much that, or like, oh, I'm the token Asian there. And that's just kind of harmful in them saying that and how they're disregarding all the hard work I put into it. So yeah, something I faced.
Yeah, I think that's really hard, and it's also like definitely unfair. I feel like it also kind of relates to like how sometimes like other like people at W like especially like boys at WPI I've like noticed they kind of sometimes say like, oh, like you like I've kind of got the idea that it's like it was easier. And it's kind of what President Leshin was saying about it, is like it's completely not true. It's you were qualified enough to be in that position, and you are qualified enough to be here. So yeah. Does anyone else have anything? Yeah, it's definitely like the imposter syndrome. Yeah. Okay. So I actually have another poll everywhere. I don't know if yeah, let me share the poll everywhere. This one's I think a little bit more of like a open-ended type thing. So okay. So you can use this link right here and fill out this poll everywhere. Oh, I can actually put it in the chat as well. That might be easier.
Adina, if you want to share the poll, we can go through each question at a time, and we can talk about each one as we go through it.
That sounds great.
Once people join it.
Yeah, I'm just gonna stop the share, guys, for a second so I can share the link in the chat. Oh, Molly, you did it. Okay, perfect. Ashley, do you want me to share it right now?
Yeah, that works.
Okay.
Okay, so the first question is, why are you proud to be a woman in STEM? And then as the responses come in, let's see. Yeah, a lot of the answers, like Julia talked about before, is being able to learn from your experience. How she said with coding, people think that it's just men that go home and code and are going to be better than us at it. But a lot of the times we experience situations where we're just as good at doing the work that they do. One of the experiences I came across was having an internship before coming to school here. And I actually was like one of the younger women to work with a group of men. And we produced stuff for a mechanical engineering company. And a lot of the times I was able to do it just as well as they did. But I think it's pretty cool to be more confident in that area. Just like that answer right there, to encourage other young girls. I think it's very important that we continue to encourage each other in this field. Exactly, yes, because there aren't many of us. Like President Leshin said, the amount of women here are increasing, which is a good, nice, positive thing to see. I like that response. Adina, whenever you want to go to the next one, I see we still have answers coming in, but I think the next question goes along with this one as well. So
Yeah, sounds good. Okay, I think you guys should be able to respond to the second question now. I would go to the same chat thing.
yeah, the next question should just come up as soon as it's activated.
Okay, cool. I really like this response, having so many people younger than me that got to me. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, a lot of the responses too are encouraging each other, which I like to see. And a lot of the times in classrooms, you might not be in a group of all women, and so men try and take over. But I think it's exciting to be more confident and step up into those leadership roles, no matter who's in your group or what you're working on. Inspiring others, yes, that's important.
Okay, I'm gonna move on to the next question.
again, for this question, I feel that's very true, stereotypes. And like Julia said, with men and people who of other genders think they might be better than you at something, even in internships or jobs or whatnot. I think along with the stereotypes, a lot of people assume that women are just in one field of STEM. And I think a lot of people just do what they're passionate about. So I've heard a lot of things where like, oh, a bunch of women are BME, but I also know like men in the BME field and women who are in other fields that used to be all men in that engineering field. So I think it's pretty cool when people choose other majors, not just because they think that they shouldn't, but they want to.
I read about this like anecdotal story. I don't know if it's true, but I read it on Reddit of this guy who was like kind of like switched emails with his coworker for a week, and so the coworker is a woman, and like they have a very front facing role where they talk to customers, and like she had the most productive weeks of her career where she could just like get so much done, and he had the worst weeks of his career because he kept having to prove himself and like prove to the customers that he knew what he was talking about. So I feel like it has a lot to do with what we're talking about for this question.
That's so crazy. There's so many great responses. Yeah, I can relate to this comment about being Asian too. I feel like kind of adds like a whole other element to it. Okay, do the next question. Okay, you should be able to see it now.
This question's just a quick one, yes or no. The next question in the poll, people can share, for those of you who answered yes, and I guess no too, what has made why you chose yes or why you chose no. So Adina, if you want to show the next one.
Yeah, you should be able to see it now. Ashley, are there any other questions we should do?
I think those were all of them in the poll.
Okay, cool.
And the presentation shows the questions again, but I think if anybody has anything to add, they can, but otherwise, I think they were all covered.
Okay, cool. Yeah, does anyone have anything they want to share based on that? Otherwise, we can go back to the presentation. Okay. So we went over the questions. Oops. Okay. So we have 2 other questions you guys can share like in the chat or like on mic or whatever. So what are you most looking forward to upon starting an internship or job? This could be like this summer, like in the future, or like an internship you might want to have at some point. I think there's. So Julia said, hopefully finding strong women role models. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. Especially like in my own field, like I'm doing data science and I'm hoping that like if I do a future internship, then I'll be able to like kind of meet other data science, other women in data science, because I feel like most of my professors so far have been male, which is kind of hard. And then Sabrina said, honestly, also making positive money instead of negative money. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, awesome. What is a piece of advice you would like to share with everyone here? It could be like anything, it could be small or like anything that you've learned over the years from like a mentor or anything like that. Okay, Julia said, hearing about everything that women on campus and in SWE accomplish inspires me to be better. Yeah, I agree with that. I think it's always good to be part of like organizations that like empower you to feel like there's other people like you and that like you're going to be able to kind of follow in their footsteps and things like that. Yeah, definitely. Tiana said, don't be afraid to reach out to someone when you need help. Yeah, I've definitely had to like learn how to do that, and it's been so much better for me once now that I have. Mira said, you're much more qualified than you think you are. Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I feel like don't feel like an imposter anywhere you are. Like you have worked hard to be in the place you are and you deserve to be there. Ashley said, continue to work towards your goals even if someone says you will never accomplish them. Prove them wrong. Yeah, for sure. I think that it's always good to like go after things that you really care about. Hannah said, trust yourself. Yeah, for sure. Julia said, think big and about your future, about the future you want. What makes you passionate about STEM? Yeah, I feel like it's always good to know like why you're doing something, like kind of always go back to your main reason of like why you joined the major you did or why you joined the program you did, why you joined the school you did, and that's what makes you passionate, and that's what like help you continue on. Okay, any final responses to that? Okay, thank you so much for participating, everyone. You had so many good responses. I think we just have a couple more slides left. Okay. Not sure who's doing these.
All right, just have a few more questions. And again, like feel free just to jump in whenever. Oh, Adina, do you want to share that again?
Yeah, sorry.
Thank you. These first few questions are sort of directed more toward the groups who worked on like the 4 days. While doing research on your topics, was there anything that the groups found particularly interesting or surprising? This can be anything. Feel free to type in the chat or just unmute yourself.
Oh yeah, feel free to put it in the chat as well too.
Yeah. Did anyone learn anything like particularly from their panelists that made them empowered or inspired? I know I was very inspired by President Leshin today. I love hearing her talk.
I remember on the first day hearing about Professor Nara and how like she came from a very different background and coming like to the United States and stuff, and like all the things she accomplished that really inspired me, and how she talked about how like her students inspire her more and like with the club that they're starting. I thought that was really sweet and that made me happy.
And then lastly, how did having primary sources help the groups put the research into perspective?
I know when I was looking for pictures through the archives, like the online WPI archives for like old like women sports pictures or clubs or literally any pictures of like women on campus, it was like almost impossible to find. Like, and even like any recent pictures of like women's clubs and sports wasn't really updated on the archive. So that was annoying. So that didn't help, but it put it in perspective. Like there's no pictures of like Sig or like the old sororities in the archives and stuff. Even though there's like a lot of pictures of men.
Yep.
That's so interesting.
Definitely. Anyone else have anything to add on that one? If not, we can move on to the next slide.
Yeah, I can do the next slide.
Just to wrap things up, if anyone else has anything they want to share that's just genuinely interesting or something you learned this week that you were like, wow, I just did not know that. I know there were moments where Laura Leshin was talking and I was like, wow, I did not realize that women actually are still super underrepresented in so many departments. And I'm just like so thankful we have a president like her to continue to break that, you know what I mean? And really inspire other women.
Sorry, I didn't mean to move to the next slide.
Good. Margaret says, I was surprised to learn the percentage of men to women on campus. I thought it would be higher. Yeah, for sure. I know.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy.
Yeah, definitely. And then would anyone in the audience like to share something they learned that they found empowering or inspiring? Any last thoughts to wrap up the week?
Okay, I think we're good. I can move to the next slide and can finish this up.
Thank you so much for joining us. This was really great just to hear what everyone has to say. I think it's awesome that we even have the opportunity to meet, even though it's on Zoom, but I know I love hearing what everyone else has to say. So thank you so much for coming and thank you for listening. I think that.
Yeah, I really appreciate you all for participating and doing all that. I had a great time and I learned a lot from all of you.
I have a quick question.
Yeah.
Where can I find the recordings for the previous meetings, particularly the one that happened on Tuesday? Because there was like contact info for some of the alumni that were here, and I wanted to send someone an email, but I didn't know where to find it.
He will be on the you handle it will be out in the newsletter.
Oh, so like
Okay.
the next email. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Are they posted right now, Juliana, on the YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay, I think if you just search like WPI SWE on YouTube, maybe it will come up.
Oh, okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for organizing this. It was really great.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for coming.
Good job, guys.
Yeah.